G'day, everybody. How's it going out there? Normally, when it comes to interpersonal issues in the furry fandom, I tend to allow those things to occur unabated by some guy in a tie on a chair in a house somewhere talking about social, political, or interpersonal issues within the fandom. That being said, with that warning aside, this is going to be a little political because we're going to talk about political comics, particularly in regards to women in the fandom. And this art really took off, and I think it's still sort of in the mindset and the conversation piece of the furry fandom at large. So, even though usually when it comes to circles of topics and talking about, social conflict and the concept of attention and, talent and whether it's recognized due to one's physical being or one's ability, I think that this is actually a very important topic, so I wish to take the time to do that. If that's not your kind of cup of tea, I fully understand, that you will see on the next video. That being said, the original comic that brought a lot of attention and a lot of conversation around women in the furry fandom is a comic by Glass Shine. And I'm going to show you the tweet here. It has 4 panels. In the first panel, you have Cute GF, or Cute Girlfriend. And it's a fox or a Shinu Unu, sort of canine character in a nice green, a green sweater and, blue and white tube socks. And so that's the first panel. On the second panel, you have furry fandom. The words furry fandom, and under that are 6 characters who are kind of like just kind of going, They're in sort of gray monotone colors, and they're kind of like just staring without like really having any enthusiasm, just kind of like, and some of them are giving quizzical looks, like what is she doing here, kind of a thing. Then you have the third panel on the next row, where it says cute GF, but the GF is crossed out. And underneath GF is femboy boyfriend. And it's the same exact character, the canine with the curly tail and the green sweater and the pinkish blue, whitish pink blue tube socks. And the fourth panel, once again, says furry fandom, but instead of having sort of mediocre, sort of tempered, like inquisitive and like what the heck is going on expressions, they're all like colorful and they're all like with their hands in the air and going yay and wonderful and awesome. So and the reason I described that out is because not everybody watches this with the visuals, but basically that's the whole premise behind the comic. Artistically, it's a very, very well done comic because it uses something called symmetry, right? The comics first and the second panel, or the first and the third panel on the left side, kind of present something, and then the second and the fourth panel on the right side present a similar thing, and it sort of bleeds into the reactionary phrase. So, as sort of a way of presenting the issue, it's very aesthetically pleasing. And people have discussed this as like about women and about the treatment of women in the fandom, and have used it as a launching point. So it has begun political discussions. However, looking at this from a artistic standpoint, and as someone who talks about political communication and proper usage of words and very weighted things, is when you're talking about political things, you really, really, really have to be careful about one thing, and that is causing an out or creating a situation where another person can interpret, whether purposefully or unintentionally, another message entirely, which may muddy the waters of your thing. And so that happened with this comic. There were some people who were gay or trans in the furry fandom saying that this was sort of a little mud in the eyes not only against women, but against those people. And I think I have the perfect sort of tweet to show why sometimes those sort of misinterpretations can be intentional as much as they are not intentional. So this was one response that got a lot of note here by this guy who's in a who has an icon of a God, what are those things called? The computer things, circles? No, circles. Circles are they're the kind of electronic version of the circle. God, why can't I remember the name of that thing? God, I'm so out of touch with the fandom. I'm starting to forget names of species. But they basically the computer thingies with the computer heads. But anyways, the long and the short of it is that this character here says the first sentence basically talks about the premise in which I'm talking about when it comes to being precise with political language. He goes, it's like this because a majority of furries are gay, LMAO. Now, if he ended it at that, right, he's got a point. If he ended it at that, he could have went, yeah, because these 6 furries down here are obviously gay, or they're obviously into femboys more than actual women. And why is that an issue? They should be able to like what they like without condemnation, right? There might be some people out there who like the cute girlfriend, but they're not pictured here, right? He could make that argument, but instead, he reinforces the comic by doing the exact thing that is problematic by continuing. And how this person continues is almost, and I'm going to assume it's a guy because of this sentence. Also, not to mention, women almost don't exist in this fandom. And if they do, they are almost always NPCs. It's like, if you're trying to make it appear like this comic is being anti-LGBT, you should have stopped at the first sentence. You're not doing yourself any favors. Because you just basically said, well, I am going to be disparaging towards women by saying that they're NPCs. And basically every woman who sees that says, see, look at that. Look at what this guy said. This is what we deal with. This is how we deal with this stuff. And it's like, yep, can't argue now, can you? Right? So the comic and its reaction has really spread the concepts about how women are treated in the furry fandom, as whether they're be treated as colleagues or as second-class citizens, because especially by people who are not interested in a woman's form intimately or whatever. Now, so that it's like, why was I critiquing this comic so much? Shouldn't I be talking about women and saying and getting full on behind the fact that women need more attention in this fandom? But here's the thing. I set you up because a great commenter on this thread of this comic, about a few posts down, notes, and I did see this comic as well, and sadly, I didn't bring attention to it at the time. I probably should have. So I will note my mistakes as well. But I'm going to bring attention to it now because I think it does what this comic does, but it does it better, even though it got less attention. Because if you look down at the bottom here, right, you have 3,000, almost 2,099 retweets, 864 quotes / quote tweets, 20,200 likes, 928 bookmarks for the Glass Shines version of this comic, right? Of the concept of women being treated differently than men or femboys in this fandom. So let's take another look at another comic, and this one is by a woman author. This is by Bear Hybrid / Holly Bear. And they taught their style of art is feral sort of presenting characters with cognitive abilities. So their bears look like bears, their foxes look like foxes, They are not very anthro in character, but they are anthro in cognition, right? So they have the ability to understand cognitive thought. And so when they present characters, it is much more difficult to tell if a character is male or female, because animals in the animal kingdom, more often than not, don't present whether they're a male or a female in the sense of visuality, because most species outside of humans can judge such things based on smells and other such factors instead of visual. Humans are very visual creatures. We mark our territories with colorful banners, right? We don't use things like scent, which other animals use. So when it comes to presenting as male or female in the animal world, usually you don't have to see if a person has a person has a bazunga or junk or whatever. You don't have to look for those things because there are other ways that animals can tell, right? And so, that being said, these feral characters present this issue in a better way than the other comic does, because even though it's not symmetrical, even though it doesn't have isn't colored, it isn't, it doesn't have some of the things that might have drawn attention to the other comics, such as color, composition and things like that. And it is good composition. This comic has very good composition. It's just not symmetrical like the other ones. So the symmetrical very much, causes like better flow and stuff like that. But as I said, that symmetry causes that issue. This one is not symmetrical. And because it's not symmetrical, it presents the problem in the first two panels and actually goes into the third panel and the fourth panel, right? So it presents the problem, right? And it presents it in a very concise way. So this is what Holly Bear's comic says. You have the first panel with the bear, which is Holly Bear's character, and the fox is going, "Oh my God, it's a big bear, big lover bear. Oh, it's a big bear." And so that's the first panel. I can barely read this because I'm wearing my mask, so I'm kind of ad-libbing a little bit based on memory, but reading some of it. Second panel is the fox comes up to the bear, arms outreached and going, "Hey there, Big Daddy Bear. Hello," right? And her character is turning her head over and looking at the fox as he's clearly a thirsty fox. And, well, I assume that the fox is a he, I suppose. Fox could be a lady. Who knows? But probably is a guy because of some of the wordage, right? So basically, he goes, "Hi there, Big Daddy Bear. Ooh," and then she puts her paw up in front of the fox and kind of like says, "Hey, no, like I'm not a guy, I'm a her, right? A she bear. I'm a she bear, okay?" And then the fox, instead of going like awkward or like going, "Oh, sorry, that was awkward of me," or like just like going like my mistake, instead takes an aggressive defensive stance as if it is the bear's fault that the fox interpreted that the bear was a he instead of a she, and that they were a male instead of a female, right? So the fox goes, "What? Ew. Ugh. False advertisement. No dick, no thanks." And that's the fourth panel. So, unlike the first one, this one, there is basically not really an out for a person looking for one. Unlike the first comic, where if a person's like trying to muddy the waters and trying to obfuscate the message of the comic, they could go, "Well, this comic isn't asking for respect or decency towards women creators and women content creators in the fandom. It's asking for thirsty gay furries to tone it down with the femboys," right? Somebody could make that argument if only they made it better than this guy. But this comic here, there's no beating around the bush. There's no escape where a person could try to pick this apart in a way. It is basically that this fox was treating this bear as a desirable object, quite honestly, until the bear was like, no, I actually am not a he. I actually don't have the parts that you pine for. And then basically the fox basically treats her like garbage. And the additional thing about this is that the comic notes that for people, like, though that attitude is seemingly horrible that the fox is committing, there is sort of a sunny side to it, and that basically is listed in the text in the tweet, where it's like, trust me, you're not my type either, right? Where people who objectify other people and see them as a vestige of desire and lust, when they come at somebody and is basically like, oh, you don't have a penis, I'm not going to be interested in you, that sort of protects and sort of in a way alleviates a problem for this interaction, right? Whereas that person who pines for just what's between the legs is going to go bother somebody who is gay, right? And is going to, go after somebody like that and not care about their personality, right? Instead of women. So women in a way are protected in this case. She's protected from this fox character who is obviously looking for something very shallow instead of something very personable, right? And in a way, that's another way that you could sort of attack this comic too, right? Well, if you are a cute girl and you don't want men knocking down your door, this might be preferable, right? If you're an asexual cute lady and you don't want sex, having people not like pine, and this is what this is interpreting, then this is actually preferable, right? In that essence, right? Whereas the femboy's got to have all these people they've got to beat back, and if they just want to be a femboy and not have to deal with, all these guys and being harping and doing all this, then that's also another sort of thing that you can sort of, the message sort of gets obfuscated. Whereas this one, the author is very clear. It's like, hey, if this is the kind of people that want to hang out with me and they present this, I'm actually quite glad that they, even though this is abrasive and nasty, I'm glad that they got that out of the way so that I don't have to deal with them anymore. So even in another factor, this comic is superior to the one that was done by Glassshine. So, it's an interesting conversation to talk about, and on top of this, right? This comment here, going back to this comment one last time, I see women as NPCs. Well, then that would make it so that if I were a guy, well, I am a guy, but as a guy, I would want to be very wary around this particular character because he wants to play. You know what I'm saying? Women are NPCs to him, and that's probably for the best for those women. But men, he's going to play the field, right? Because he's going to see them as playable characters, right? Treating as something other than an object of lust, right? So, in essence, this sort of action and behavior sort of is like the fox in this comic here, right? Where even though he's like, even though this person here is sort of disparaging women by his words, and it's very abrasive and very like, ugh, God, why is this person this way? At the same time, sometimes when women read something like that, they may be a little bit thankful, right? It's like, well, only the guys are going to have to deal with this person. And thank goodness for that, right? So this was a little bit all over the place, but I think at the end of the day, I think it shows that we have to appreciate women artists in this fandom. I mean, and what better way to present it than by a female author who is very precise, very concise with their language, and very concise with their composition of their comics to make sure that there's no weasel room here. She presents the problematic behavior, and she presents it in a way in which there's really no obfuscation or defense. Whereas, this comic here, while very bright and compositionally great, sort of leans itself to a little more nuance and also obfuscation, right? So let's not be obfuscatious. Let's thank our women furry fandoms who put up with our nonsense and put up with the fact that that they work very hard for this fandom and with comics and art and things like that, and appreciate the work that they put into these things. And I thank them very much for their contributions. And also, I hope that they continue to enjoy themselves in the fandom and continue to enjoy expressing themselves with anthropomorphic art and characters, in spite of some of the behaviors, short-sighted behaviors of some of us fans. So, anyways, thank you guys very much for watching this one. Be sure to kick the like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. I'm sure there'll be comments in the comment section this time. I'm sure. So just let me know what you think, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.